but Eisenhower refused to meet him.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into a little-known moment in World War II. American artillery changed the rules of warfare forever. What you're about to see isn't just history. Math, strategy, and sheer deadly precision that left German forces stunned.
December 21st, 1944. Just before dawn, in the frozen darkness of Dam-Buchenbach, Belgium, the stage was set for one of the most remarkable displays of military innovation in history. A German SS officer scanned the American positions through his field glasses, noting the quiet, snow-covered ridge ahead. On paper, the task seemed simple. Break through the American line, seize the crossroads, and pave the way west for the 6th SS Panzer Army. The Panzer Grenadiers under his command were veterans, hardened by years of relentless fighting on the Eastern Front. Opposite them, the American infantry dug in, composed mostly of replacements and fresh troops, untested in battle. It seemed like an easy target. But what neither the Germans nor their commanders could have imagined that bitter winter morning was that the Americans had developed a weapon so precise, so deadly in coordination, that it would redefine artillery forever. This was not a secret technology, nor an experimental weapon. It required no new invention, no revolutionary machinery, only mathematics, timing, and a radical new understanding of how to deliver destruction. Within the next 8 hours, American guns would fire more than 10,000 rounds into an area scarcely larger than a few football fields. But sheer volume alone wasn't what made it terrifying. What the Germans faced was far more insidious. Every single shell, fired from dozens of guns spread across miles, would land at precisely the same second, creating a shockwave of destruction that no traditional defense could survive. They would later call it catastrophic, a term whispered among prisoners and veterans alike. The story of this tactic begins years earlier, not in the Ardennes, but in the classrooms and offices of Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where a handful of American officers asked a simple, deadly question. What if the enemy had no warning at all?
To understand why this was revolutionary, you have to first grasp how artillery worked in previous conflicts. During World War I, artillery was the supreme killing machine. The popular image of machine guns doesn't tell the full story. Hundreds of thousands of men died under relentless bombardments, their bodies turned into mud, blood, and rubble across the fields of France. On the first day of the Somme, British artillery fired over 1.5 million shells at German positions. Before Verdun, the Germans themselves fired more than 2 million rounds in just 12 hours. The problem was always the same. Artillery gave the enemy a warning. Ranging shots landed first, signaling exactly where subsequent rounds would fall. Competent soldiers learned to anticipate, to press themselves into the mud, to survive the initial wave. Massive bombardments could flatten landscapes but rarely annihilated the defenders. Survivors of the Somme emerged from deep bunkers to mow down advancing infantry, claiming tens of thousands of casualties in a single day. The mathematics of survival were brutally simple. Seconds of warning equaled life,
and traditional artillery always offered that warning. In the 1920s and early 1930s, while most nations sought to forget the horrors of industrialized war, a small group of American officers at Fort Sill looked at the problem differently. Major Carlos Brewer began experimenting with fire direction techniques. Later, Major Orlando Ward expanded these methods, creating the Fire Direction Center between 1932 and 1934. Instead of batteries operating independently, all firing data would converge in a central hub, a single brain coordinating dozens of guns. The implications were staggering. This system allowed American artillery to calculate flight times, account for distance, elevation, weather, and propellant differences, and synchronize every round to impact simultaneously.
But this innovation required more than calculation. Trust between units, reliable radios, forward observers capable of precise targeting, and surveyors who could standardize maps into grids that allowed rapid computation. Pre-computed firing tables turned hours of work into minutes. Infantry sergeants could call in fire support with a radio, and any battery in range could respond immediately. Unlike the German system, which demanded careful pre-planning, the Americans could strike almost anywhere within 3 minutes, a matter of life or death for anyone caught in the open. Halfway through this story, it's worth pausing for a moment. If you find these insights into revolutionary wartime tactics fascinating and want to uncover more hidden histories from World War II, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps these stories reach more people and keeps history alive. By December 21, 1944, Lieutenant Colonel Darrell M. Daniels and the 2nd Battalion of the 26th Infantry Regiment were dug in at Dombitkenbach, guarding a critical piece of terrain in the northern Ardennes. Behind them lay roads to Liège and vital Allied supply lines. In front, the elite 12th SS Panzer Division prepared to strike. Daniel's men were exhausted, fresh from weeks of relentless combat, some seeing battle for the first time. The German assault began in the pre-dawn darkness, Panzer Grenadiers advancing, supported by armored vehicles and rocket launchers. What followed became legend. General Clift Andrus commanded the 1st Division Artillery and had control of 348 guns from 23 battalions. Using the Fire Direction Center, they executed a time-on-target strike that shattered a German company crossing a snowfield. Shells rained down simultaneously, hundreds in a 3-second window, leaving no warning and no escape. This was more than artillery. It was mathematics made lethal, a testament to preparation, discipline, and ingenuity. German soldiers had never seen anything like it. The battlefield itself became a calculator, each round landing as if predetermined by fate. Those first hours of the attack at Dombitkenbach would echo throughout the Ardennes and beyond, a turning point where American artillery proved that timing and coordination could outmatch even the most experienced veterans of the Eastern Front. As the hours of December 21st, 1944 unfolded, the battlefield at Dombitkenbach became a living testament to the devastating power of coordination, calculation, and timing. German troops, trained and hardened on the Eastern Front, were utterly unprepared for what they faced.
The snow-covered fields, which earlier that morning had seemed calm and empty, were transformed into a chaotic storm of shrapnel, smoke, and earth upheaved by hundreds of artillery shells striking simultaneously. Time on target had turned the conventional rules of survival on their head. Where once a soldier could hear the ranging shots, sense the incoming fire, and dive into the cold mud to survive, now there was no warning. Every shell fell at the exact same moment, creating an overwhelming wave of destruction that left no opportunity for instinct or reaction. Lieutenant Colonel Darrell M. Daniels and his men witnessed the unprecedented sight firsthand. From their dugouts, they watched the calculated fury of American fire tear through the advancing SS Panzer Grenadiers. The precision was terrifying. Machine gun nests destroyed before they could react, armored vehicles shredded under the relentless barrage, and entire formations disrupted in a single coordinated strike. Soldiers who had survived Stalingrad, Kharkov, and the relentless grind of the Eastern Front found themselves pinned down, unable to advance or retreat. For the Americans, it was proof that preparation, mathematics, and innovation could multiply the effectiveness of even ordinary weapons to extraordinary levels. But the story of time on target was more than just numbers on a firing table or the synchronized pull of a lanyard. It was a demonstration of human ingenuity applied to war in a way that changed modern combat forever. The men at Fort Sill had not invented a new gun. They had invented a new way of thinking.
By centralizing fire control, standardizing communications, and trusting every unit to execute flawlessly, they created a system that allowed artillery to act not as individual pieces, but as a single, terrifying organism. This organizational genius meant that, while German officers relied on established patterns, careful pre-planning, and slow calculations, American gunners could strike with devastating speed. Within minutes, the battlefield was altered, and the momentum of the German offensive was shattered. Witness accounts later described the chaos in vivid detail. German soldiers stumbled, their formations broken before they reached the American line. Snow turned to mud under the explosions, smoke blurred the horizon, and the cries of the wounded echoed across the ridge. Some men tried to regroup, others froze, paralyzed by the shock of seeing their comrades fall under perfectly timed fire. Even armored support could not counteract the precision strikes. Jagdpanzer IVs were disabled before they could reach the infantry, and Nebelwerfer rocket crews were neutralized before launching a single salvo. The psychological impact was as lethal as the physical destruction. The terror of knowing that every shell would arrive simultaneously, with no escape, broke the will of the attackers in a way that traditional artillery had never achieved. By the time the snow settled and the smoke cleared, the German advance had been halted completely. The defenders at Dombitkenbach had achieved what many thought impossible. A smaller, exhausted, and outnumbered force had repelled one of Hitler's elite divisions. The success of time on target in this battle would echo throughout the Ardennes and beyond, influencing tactics, doctrine, and training in the United States Army and Allied forces. Officers at Fort Sill, often overlooked in popular narratives, had created a framework for modern artillery that emphasized timing, coordination,
and real-time communication, principles that remain foundational to this day. For the soldiers who survived that day, the experience was both terrifying and defining. Veterans recounted the overwhelming sight of simultaneous impact, the terrifying roar of hundreds of guns firing as one, and the knowledge that their lives had depended entirely on discipline, preparation, and trust in their comrades. German soldiers, many of whom had faced countless battles, would later describe the experience as unlike anything they had ever encountered. A moment where modern mathematics had triumphed over brute force. The battle at Dombitkenbach and the implementation of time on target illustrate a critical lesson of World War II. Technological innovation is not always about new weapons, but often about applying existing tools in smarter, more effective ways. It shows how preparation, intelligence, and ingenuity can transform ordinary soldiers and equipment into an overwhelming force. As the snow melted in the Ardennes and the echoes of artillery faded, the legacy of that morning endured. Time on target became a symbol of American innovation, a testament to the power of mathematics, discipline, and trust in warfare. It reshaped how armies approached artillery, changed the expectations of frontline soldiers, and forever altered the art of killing in modern combat. In the end, the story of that frozen ridge in Belgium is more than a tale of destruction. It is a story of vision, planning, and the brutal effectiveness of precision. It reminds us that even in the most chaotic moments of war, human intellect can dominate the battlefield. The men who executed those fire missions, the soldiers who survived them, and the historians who preserve their story all bear witness to a revolutionary moment that changed the course of modern warfare forever.